Hello, dear Aries. Welcome back to this sacred space where we listen to the echoes of the universe, where we dive into the soul to find the light that once felt lost in the dark. If today you feel like you've been walking too long on a road that drains you, then maybe, just maybe, this is the moment to pause, to take a deep breath, and start finding your way out of the shadows. I know there have been times when you felt trapped, as if you were locked in an invisible prison, a space so suffocating, built by tangled thoughts, unhealed wounds, and long silences from people who once meant everything. It's made you question, where do I go from here? Where is the way out? You've been strong for far too long. So strong that sometimes you forgot you also need someone to place a hand gently on your shoulder and say, it's okay now. You don't have to keep carrying it all alone. But Aries, something beautiful is unfolding, even if you haven't noticed it yet. Beneath the weight of everything you've been holding, your energy is shifting, quietly but powerfully, like the earth trembling just before spring awakens, like molten fire cracking the shell of an old volcano preparing to erupt and release what's been held in for far too long. You are no longer bound by the limits that once held you back. A new door is opening, and this time, you won't step through it with hesitation, but with steady feet, a heart that's learned to heal itself, and a light that you thought you had lost, now burning brighter than ever. No one can hold back an Aries once you're ready. No one can stop the current of a soul that has learned how to walk through the dark without fear. And you know what? It's your courage to face the hardest nights that makes your light so rare, so precious. Yes, maybe you've been misunderstood. Maybe you've been abandoned. Maybe you've asked yourself 1,000 times, why do I give so much and receive so little? But the universe, it doesn't reward on surface value. It sees your fire. Every challenge you've endured was forging that flame within you, and now, that flame is unstoppable. You're not a lost Aries anymore. You're the Aries who no longer wants to live inside someone else's expectations, who no longer lets old scars dictate your path. You're not looking back, not because you don't feel, but because you finally understand what lies ahead is more worthy than anything left behind. And sometimes, life begins the moment we dare to let go. So tell me, who is trying to find their way back to you? Who is holding on to words never spoken, still watching you from a distance, still hoping that door might open again? There's a feeling rising now, soft like a breeze, but strong enough to stir something deep in your heart. And together, we're about to uncover that secret right after this. Sometimes, what haunts us the most is not what we've lost, but what we never got the chance to say. Some relationships don't end in anger. They end in silence. Not because the feelings are gone, but because no one was brave enough to take one more step. Aries, someone out there is thinking about you. Someone who once believed they had all the time in the world to understand you. But time slipped away. And all that's left now is a quiet space and a question that never found its answer. They've kept every emotion locked inside. No drama, no displays, but behind those eyes, there's a soul that hasn't let go. A heart that still sees you in dreams that keep replaying, in a memory that refuses to fall asleep. Maybe they made the wrong choice. Maybe they were carrying wounds from a love that came before, so deep they couldn't fully trust the beauty right in front of them. And maybe in their fear, they ended up hurting you, without meaning to. Now that the distance has stretched far enough for clarity, they're starting to see you were never replaceable. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And that truth, it lingers. Like a quiet light in the dark, it doesn't burn out. But it also can't be touched. They want to tell you something, not to explain, not to win you back, but because there's a truth they buried once and they can't carry it anymore. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it's an admission. Maybe it's a feeling they never had the courage to name. Whatever it is, it's finding its way to you, and you'll feel it. Not in words, but in a glance, a message out of the blue, or just a wave of intuition that hits you. One quiet afternoon. Are you ready to hear it, not to go back, but to release the weight, to forgive yourself for having loved with your whole heart? You know, forgiveness isn't always about reopening an old door. Sometimes it's just placing your hand gently on your own and saying, I did my best, and now I let myself move on. They come close, not because you need them, but because their soul needs you to close a chapter that was never truly finished. And the moment you realize that you don't need an apology to be free, that's the moment the truth stops hurting. It just becomes a soft breeze through a memory, one that lets you smile and whisper to yourself, "I'm okay now." And in the midst of all these crashing waves of emotion, there's still a steady rhythm from the universe, a pulse of justice and kindness flowing quietly in your direction, because there are things no one else may see but heaven always knows, and divine justice is finally beginning to speak. There are things in life you don't need to ask for, you don't have to raise your voice or prove how much you've been hurt, because the universe in its own quiet way remembers every tear you've ever shed. Every long night you held yourself together, when no one else even knew you were breaking. Aries, divine justice is slowly making its way back to you, not in the form of revenge, but as a deep rebalancing of your soul. The one who caused you pain, the one who took your heart for granted, they will face the very darkness they once threw toward you. You don't need to do a thing, because the truth doesn't need anyone to defend it. It stands on its own with time on its side. And you, the one who kept walking through every storm with grace, you're about to receive what you truly deserve. Not because you were perfect, but because you never betrayed yourself. You gave not to get something in return, but because the love inside you was too real to hold back. Now, the universe is returning it all to you in ways more beautiful and unexpected than you could imagine. You might feel lonely right now, but that emptiness you feel, it's not hollow. It's the quiet before life brings you the kind of connection that matches your frequency deeper, gentler, truer. You don't need people who only show up when you shine. You need souls who see your light even when it flickers, even when you're too tired to keep it burning bright. And yes, they're coming, because when one door finally closes, another sky has already been waiting for you just over the hill. So trust this, you're not alone. There are invisible hands holding you every single day. And if you look closely, you'll notice some people have already started to see you differently. They don't come to take, they come to heal. With you, you've learned how to stand up on your own. But this time, let yourself lean on someone, even just for a moment. Because real strength isn't about never falling. It's about allowing yourself to soften when you need to and knowing you're worthy of being loved again. There will come a day when you look back at the road you've traveled, not with pain, but with the gentle eyes of someone who's grown through everything they've lost. And when that peace inside you begins to speak, you'll understand everything that happened had a deeper reason than the eye could ever see. Some doors had to close to finish old karma, and the gifts now on their way to you, they are the reward for a soul that never lost itself in the chaos. And when that weight starts to lift, you'll feel it, a new breeze touching your life, bringing with it new chances for your heart, your purpose, and your financial path that's finally ready to rise again. There are times in life when everything feels like it's standing still, not quite stuck, but not really flowing either. You wake up each morning, go through the motions, the same familiar steps, and yet somewhere inside, your heart feels a little quieter with each passing day, as if a part of you is waiting to be awakened. Aries, if you've been feeling this way, maybe it's not because you're on the wrong path, maybe it's simply time for a new direction. Maybe the path you chose once lit a fire in you, or at the very least, you thought it was good enough. But you and I both know, good enough was never meant to be the final stop for a soul like yours. You weren't born to just survive, you were made to create. You weren't meant to follow old maps, but to draw your own. And now, a fork in the road is appearing. Maybe it's a chance to change careers. Maybe it's starting over from scratch, or maybe it's just one small idea that hits you like a flash, and suddenly your heart beats louder than before. You feel that spark, that's the sign. The universe speaks. Through what makes you feel most alive, someone will show up to help. A bit of advice from a stranger, a hand reaching out at just the right time, someone who's walked a few steps ahead and is willing to point the way. That support, it's coming, but first, you have to allow yourself to change. You have to loosen your grip on what no longer fits, because no new door can open if your hands are still clinging to the old one. Believe this, your finances are shifting. Not because of some miracle that falls from the sky, but because you've started choosing differently. The moment you dare to try something new, to ask bigger questions, to walk into the unknown, that's when the flow begins. Money moves, opportunities open. You might have to learn again, step into a field that feels unfamiliar, but that humility, that willingness to begin will unlock things that pride never could. Remember, it's never too late to start over, and no one gets to define your worth except you. Do what lights you up. Even if it's small, even if it's brand new. As long as you show up fully, the universe will walk with you every single step. And then, as you grow steadier on this new path, as money begins to move again, as your confidence returns like the steady drumbeat inside your chest, you'll notice something else shifting too. Not just in work, not just in the physical world, but in the heart, where an old connection is quietly calling out again. A relationship you thought was closed might just be on its way back. Some people, even after they've left our lives, their soul still lingers, somewhere between the layers of invisible waves. They're no longer here in words, no longer close enough to touch. And yet all it takes is a familiar song, a sunset passing through your window, and your heart aches just a little, as if something left unsaid is still quietly waiting. Dear Aries, there is a soul walking through their own kind of desert right now. No sand, no sun, no storm, just an emotional wilderness where they're wandering between memory and longing, trying to make sense of why they still think of you, why they still feel the weight of something left behind. They appear to be living just fine, but every step feels a little forced, like something's missing. Maybe they don't realize it yet, but every path they take somehow is still leading them back to you, even if they never meant it to. And maybe you don't know it either, but the universe might be quietly orchestrating a reunion. A relationship you thought had ended, words you thought were final, but sometimes endings are just pauses so we can learn how to love ourselves better. And when you meet again, neither of you are the same anymore. If you're brave enough to listen to your heart, not your fear, you'll realize love isn't always clear. It doesn't always come at the right time, but real love, it always finds a way back when it's finally ready. Yes, and maybe you were hurt, and maybe they were wrong, but maybe you both had to take the long way around just to realize there's still something in the other that feels safe and real. And if something crazy does happen in your life right now, then maybe, just maybe, it's your heart, the one you thought had gone quiet, that suddenly wants to open again. No promises, no grand declarations, just two hearts, after everything they've been through, looking at each other and saying, I'm still here, no matter what happened. And who knows, maybe that kind of crazy is the very thing you needed to feel truly alive again. Because not every connection needs control. Sometimes it just needs surrender, surrendering your defenses, surrendering your ego, surrendering the fear of being hurt again. And when you begin to believe that love isn't about holding on, but about letting go, and feeling you'll be ready for whatever surprise comes next. One of those surprises might just be the beginning of a new kind of freedom within you. And in that space, you won't feel the need to steer everything anymore, because you'll know the universe is guiding you exactly where you're meant to go. Aries, have you ever felt like you're running through a maze with no finish line in sight? Another day passes filled with a to-do list that seems never-ending. The responsibilities, the expectations, the worries no one else can see. You're so busy, you forget how to take a deep breath. You are strong, yes, but strength doesn't mean living in a rhythm that slowly drains everything out of you. Maybe you've told yourself, if I don't do it, who will? But sometimes that question alone becomes the very thing that traps you in a cycle that never really ends. And then one morning you wake up, everything still looks fine, but inside you feel empty. Aries, you don't have to hold everything so tightly anymore. The more we try to control, the more we lose touch with that sacred part of ourselves. The part that used to trust, the part that knew how to let go, the part that listened to the voice of the heart instead of the ticking clock of responsibility. Maybe it's time to slow down, not to give up, but to return to yourself. To sit still on a quiet afternoon while the sky shifts its color. To close your eyes and ask yourself, what am I really running toward? And what might find me if I simply stop and be still? Do you know something, Aries? You weren't born to be a machine. You were born with a rare spark of light that makes others feel alive just by being near you. You have a gift. Not a technical skill or a job title, but the ability to touch people where they feel the deepest, in their emotions, in their soul. And when you use that gift, the doors open on their own. No struggle, no pushing. Just the right frequency, and life begins to respond in miraculous ways. Sometimes, the only thing standing between you and joy is not bad luck, it's that you won't let yourself pause. You won't let yourself soften. You won't allow yourself to choose the gentler path, even if it's the one that fits your spirit best. So let the universe lead you. It's always been whispering directions. You just have to get quiet enough to hear them. And once you begin to trust that this divine rhythm knows what it's doing, once you stop fixing everything, stop chasing answers with your mind, you'll feel it. A new chapter quietly unfolding ahead. One where you no longer have to fight your way forward. You just listen, because this time, the choice is finally yours to make. Maybe the most painful part isn't being left behind. It's being left in between. When someone doesn't say goodbye, doesn't fully walk away, but also doesn't stay. And you, the one who loved with your whole soul, had to wait in silence, not because you still hoped, but because you couldn't close something that was never clearly opened or ended. Aries, there's someone who once made you wait, someone who couldn't decide, and now they're coming back, not to play games, but to try and reach for something they once let slip through their hands. They come with new eyes and a heart that's been bruised but grown. But this time, they're not in control, you are, and that changes everything, because you're not the same person anymore. Not the one who gives without limits, not the one who begs someone to stay. You're the Aries who's walked through your own journey, who knows your worth and what you truly deserve. You don't need to prove anything. Just ask your heart, do I still want to open that door after everything? Does this heart still whisper their name with warmth? This is no longer about right or wrong. It's about peace. Whoever brings you clarity, support, and honesty, they are the one worth letting in. And if no one meets you there, then you still have a choice. You can choose yourself. You can choose freedom, a journey with no hand to hold, but with light guiding your every step. You can choose a life where you never again have to shrink your heart just to stay in any relationship. Things are moving quickly now, Aries. Life is offering you crossroads, new faces, old doors, soft knocks on your heart in the middle of the night. But don't rush to answer, just feel, because now there's no need to hurry. This life is your story to rewrite. You get to choose what continues and what ends with grace. Thank you for staying with me until this final breath of the story. If you're hearing these words late at night, alone in a quiet room, please remember, you are not alone. The universe is closer than you think, and the best things, they've never left your path. To you, the one who carries the fire of Aries, may you always be brave enough to choose what's right for you, gentle enough to hold your own heart, and bright enough that no one can ever dim your light. I'll meet you again in the next deep layer of the soul. Good night or good morning, wherever you are. May you wake up fully yourself and never again have to compromise.